This podcast is sponsored and brought to you by Adama Beverages Limited, the makers of the top-quality Faro brand of table water, natural fruit juices, and mixed-flavored fruit juices.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're dissecting a really pivotal moment, potentially shaping Nigeria's political future, the upcoming 2027 general elections.
That's right. And you can feel it, can't you? There's this widespread demand bubbling up among Nigerians for, well, more competent, trustworthy, and responsible leadership.
Exactly. And even though the official campaigns haven't kicked off yet, one name keeps sort of consistently popping up in discussions. That's former Vice President Atiku Abubakar.
He certainly does, a familiar name with a long history in Nigerian politics.
So our mission here in this deep dive is really to take a thorough look at the arguments and visions presented in the source materials we've gathered. We've got articles, analyses, opinions, all focused on Atiku Abubakar's potential candidacy. And our goal, just to be clear, is to unpack these different perspectives impartially. We want to give you, our listener, a really clear understanding of the points being made by various groups and individuals.
Right. No endorsements here, just laying out what the sources claim.
We're providing the context, the specifics, the insights, so you can form your own informed opinions about what's actually being proposed.
And the sources, they really hammer home that Nigeria is at a critical point, a real juncture.
They do. The decisions made around 2027, they aren't just about picking leaders. They're framed as these fundamental choices that could profoundly shape the country's long-term path.
Absolutely. And these materials we're looking at offer a pretty detailed lens into how one prominent figure, Atiku, is proposing to tackle the challenges.
Okay. So with that crucial context laid out, let's start unpacking the specific arguments the sources are making about his potential candidacy.
Let's do it.
So this Daily Reporter source, it paints a pretty vivid picture of the national situation. Almost stark, you might say.
How so?
It describes Nigeria as standing at a crucial crossroads in its civic advancement. It talks about years of economic turbulence, persistent insecurity, and growing disillusionment with public institutions.
Familiar themes, unfortunately.
Very. And there's this urgent call, you can almost feel it in the writing, for credible and visionary leadership.
Right. And the trust issue is central, isn't it?
Hugely. The source emphasizes this erosion of public trust in governance, saying it highlights a deep need for leaders who can genuinely, rebuild institutions, foster national unity, and restore faith in the democratic process.
So the stakes are incredibly high for 2027, according to this view.
Exactly. It frames the election not just as another vote, but as a rare opportunity for a national reset, one based on transparency, equity, and sustainable development.
Okay. And it's against that really challenging backdrop, that difficult context, that Daylight reporters present Atiku Abubakar.
How do they frame him?
They position him as a beacon of transformative leadership, even a credible alternative.
Interesting phrasing. Beacon.
Yeah. And what's fascinating is the emphasis that his political path, spanning decades, is described as grounded not in theatrics but in substance.
Substance over style, is that the idea?
That seems to be the implication, that his proposed solutions are seen, in the source at least, as well thought out, practical, not just political noise. It immediately positions him as a serious figure for addressing these big issues.
Okay, so let's get into that substance then. One of the core arguments from Daylight reporters seems to be his commitment to restructuring Nigeria's system.
Yes, the over-centralized system, as they call it.
Right. And it's not just a vague idea. The source says he advocates for a transfer of power and resources to states and local government.
Centralization, essentially.
Pretty much. And the stated goal is quite bold: to catalyze grassroots development and restore federal balance.
So the vision is more autonomy.
Yeah, a federation where the different units, the states, have the autonomy to address their unique needs, which they believe fosters innovation and even healthy competition between states. It does sound like a fundamental shift.
What's the why? Why does the source say this restructuring matters so much?
Well, according to the source, the aim is to dismantle the overbearing centralization that has stifled local initiatives and bred inefficiencies. That's the core problem they identify.
I see. So the belief is, by empowering states and local governments,
Nigeria can unlock its diverse potentials, promote equitable development, and strengthen national unity. That's the argument.
And they frame it quite strongly, don't they, as a strategic blueprint for sustainable governance and inclusive growth.
They do. It really underscores that this isn't seen as just tinkering, but as a foundational change for the long term.
Okay, so Moving from the structure of governance to the economy. Daylight Reporters also outlines Atiku's economic vision. How's that described?
It's described as comprehensive and focused. It mentions a proposed return to pragmatic governance, and interestingly, it draws parallels or lessons from the 1999-2007 era.
Ah, the Obasanjo-Atiku administration years. What specifically?
Yeah. They cite successes like debt relief, banking reforms, privatization from that period as sort of a template or inspiration.
Okay. And what about specific new proposals for the future?
Oh, it gets very specific. There's talk of a complete elimination of the fraudulent fuel subsidy. That's a huge one.
Always controversial.
And the money saved.
To be rechanneled into health, education, and infrastructure. Then there's a target of generating 25,000 milliW of electricity.
Wow, that's ambitious given the current situation.
Definitely. Also expanding rail and road infrastructure, reviving refinery privatization, and establishing a $10 billion economic stimulus fund, the ESF.
And that fund is for?
Specifically for micro, small, and medium enterprises, MSMEs. So a focus on the smaller engines of the economy.
Right, the grassroots economy.
And one more thing. Creating an infrastructure development unit within the presidency, presumably to coordinate and push these projects forward. It's quite a detailed blueprint.
It sounds like it. And is there corroboration or other perspectives on this economic side?
Yeah, Dr. Emeka Kalu in the Restore Nigeria news article touches on this. He explicitly cites Atiku's time as vice president.
What does Kalu say? He says that tenure showcased his ability to drive economic liberalization, trade investments, and job creation. So Kalu sees a track record there.
Okay, so connecting those dots, the overall aim seems to be creating an environment better for business, jobs, and long-term stability.
Exactly. And Daylight Reporters adds that it's also about driving industrialization, boosting local production, and crucially reducing Nigeria's reliance on oil through diversification. It's presented as a multi-pronged strategy.
Got it. A very comprehensive economic picture painted there.
Okay, so let's shift gears a bit. Security and social challenges, always massive issues. What do the sources say about Atiku's approach here?
Daylight Reporters is quite direct. It says his security plan will not be tackled with empty rhetoric.
Strong words. What are the specifics then?
Again, quite detailed. Expanding the police force significantly, aiming for 1 million officers.
1 million. That's a huge increase.
It is. Also establishing state police, which is a recurring debate in Nigeria.
True. What else?
Investing heavily in intelligence capacity, modernizing law enforcement infrastructure, and providing better training. Standard security reform proposals, perhaps, but the scale is notable.
But is it just about policing?
No, and that's key. The source highlights an emphasis on tackling the root, causes poverty, exclusion, unemployment through things like youth empowerment and job creation.
So a more holistic approach. Enforcement plus prevention.
That's how it's presented, yes.
Yeah.
Prevention and stability focused.
And how does this link to the broader social agenda?
Well, Daylight Reporters describes that social agenda as explicitly people-centered.
Meaning?
The ambition is significant. A stated focus on lifting 10 million Nigerians out of extreme poverty annually.
That's a huge number.
Through expanding healthcare access, reforming education, promoting inclusivity. The source says true development can only occur when every citizen has the opportunity to thrive.
So bridging the inequality gap is part of it.
Explicitly, the policies aim to bridge the gap between the rich and the poor. There's also mention of enhancing social safety nets for vulnerable groups, women, children, the elderly, and a specific commitment to persons with disabilities and marginalized communities.
The overall message seems to be,
no one is left behind. That phrase comes through strongly, presented as central to achieving national progress and unity.
okay, so we've covered policy areas like restructuring, economy, security, social welfare. But the sources also talk about Atiku's role more broadly, right, as a political figure.
Yes, and this is where it gets really interesting, I think. Daylight Reporters highlights his perceived role in leading a united opposition to counter creeping authoritarianism.
Creeping authoritarianism. What are they referring to there?
Well, the source points to what it sees as a trend of executive overreach, disregard for constitutional norms. It specifically mentions President Tinubu's controversial declaration of emergency in Rivers State as an example.
Right, I remember that caused quite a stir.
Exactly. And the sources reference a specific speech Atiku gave in March 2025 at the Yar'Adua Center.
A significant venue.
Very. And this speech delivered in response to the River State issue, is framed by the source not just as a critique, but as a manifesto of democratic revival.
Wow. Strong framing.
Yes. Exposing alleged executive overreach, rallying forces against what it calls illegality and impunity. The choice presented to Nigerians by the source is stark: division and decline, or a visionary leadership committed to justice, reform, and unity.
So Atiku is positioned as the leader embodying that second choice.
That's the portrayal. The source says he represents not just a political alternative, but a philosophical departure from the politics of chaos, suggesting he offers leadership made for such a time as this. It's a powerful narrative.
And does Dr. Kalu's article connect with this narrative?
It does, but perhaps from a more strategic angle. Kalu explicitly supports Atiku, citing his competence and tenacity to, as he puts it, lead the country out of its current state.
Competence and tenacity, okay.
But Kalu really emphasizes Atiku's political ability to foster relationships across Nigeria's diverse regions. This, Kalu argues, makes him an ideal candidate to unify the country.
The unity theme again.
Yes. Kalu calls him a detribalized Nigerian who can put people together and rise above the ethnic and political divides that, Kalu feels have plagued the political landscape.
So a bridge builder figure.
That's the argument Kalu makes, and he adds a particularly interesting strategic layer.
Oh, what's that?
Kalu actually suggests that supporting Atiku could be a calculated strategic move specifically for the Igbo people.
How so?
He argues it could potentially pave the way for other figures, like Mr. Peter Obi, in the future, giving the Igbo community, in his view, a greater say in Nigeria's power dynamics down the line.
That's quite a specific political calculation being attributed there.
It is. And remember, we're reporting Kalu's specific viewpoint from the source. He also stresses the importance of unity among opposition parties, warning that fragmented coalitions are often ineffective.
So Kalu's perspective adds this layer of political strategy and coalition building to the mix.
Exactly. It highlights the perceived strategic depth behind the support for Atiku, according to Kalu, going beyond just policy alignment.
Okay. So bringing this all together, what does this mean for you, the listener, as you're thinking about 2027? We've really covered a lot of ground here.
We have a remarkable breadth of arguments presented across these sources concerning Atiku Abubakar's potential run.
Yeah, we've talked about his vision for restructuring, those detailed economic plans, the strategies for security and social issues, and this perceived role as a unifying figure, particularly against concerns about creeping authoritarianism.
Indeed. And taken together, these sources portray Atiku Abubakar as a candidate bringing, decades of experience and a consistent focus on substance. That's the recurring theme.
Right, substance.
The overall aim, as described in these materials, is clearly presented as addressing Nigeria's core challenges and trying to rebuild that crucial element: trust and governance.
And as we said, we've aimed to just lay out these arguments impartially as they appear in the sources we reviewed, without taking any sides ourselves.
Absolutely. What's quite fascinating, I think, is seeing how these different dimensions, the economy, unity, governance, reform, are presented as interconnected parts of a single comprehensive vision in these materials.
It definitely paints a detailed picture, so thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
Now, as Nigeria does approach 2027, and obviously continues to grapple with these significant challenges, maybe this raises an important question for you to consider.
What's that?
When you're evaluating political candidates, how might understanding the specific, detailed proposals and also the attributed motivations, like the ones we discussed for Atiku Abubakar, how might that help you assess their potential impact on things like national unity and development?
That's a great question to ponder. We really encourage you to consider the arguments we've unpacked today as you reflect on the kind of leadership Nigeria might need moving forward. What stands out to you from what we've discussed?
We at Restore Nigeria News are super excited to introduce you to the one and only Adama Beverages Limited, the makers of the Faro brand of beverages. The Faro brand is top class. From the classic lemonade and orange crush to the super refreshing tropical pineapple, mango, apple, and coconut mixed fruit juices, they've got everything. And let's not forget about their flagship Faro table water. That's because they use a special cold pressing technique that preserves all the natural flavors and nutrients of the fruit. No pasteurization, no added sugar, just pure, unadulterated deliciousness. Whether you're looking for a refreshing lemonade, a tropical punch, a delicious fruit juice, or a nice cold bottle of water, make sure you look for the Faro brand at your local store. We just want to say a big thank you to Adama Beverages Limited for sponsoring this video. We're super grateful for the support. And until next time, stay curious, stay thirsty, and most importantly, drink Faro water and fruit juices.